Hello and welcome to the Matt and Kendall Hagee podcast. We're in a mini-series right now about advice that we would give to our younger selves. And if you caught part one, you understand that, this was Kendall's idea. And so if you love it...
Blame it on Kendall.
If you love it... Hello, darling. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for including me. I'm so glad to be here with you, my love.
I'm glad that you could be a part of it. You and I were having a conversation about things that we would do if we could, go back and speak to ourselves in our 20s. And, me in the typical type A male,
bam,
I said I'd either start it or quit it. Because if it was good, I should have started it 20 years ago. If it's bad, I should have quit it 20 years ago. And that can go across a myriad of topics.
Yeah, that can.
But, with regard to this, one of the things that we were talking about was, spouses. How do you identify an appropriate spouse? And the good news about the advice that we gave as far as a person of faith, a person with a work ethic, how they treated their parents, and, physical appearance. These were really the four indicators.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that physical appearance isn't important.
Yeah, it's good. You got to.
You're going to hear some people say, well, it doesn't matter. If they've got Jesus, that's all you need. That's true, but you're not kissing Jesus on the inside. You're kissing their face on the outside. And if it's not worth kissing, you don't want to do it.
Oh.
So, one thing that I can say is that was advice that was given to me by my father, and I put to good use. One, you were indeed a person of faith and you had a relationship with Jesus Christ when we met, evidenced by the fact you were attending the Sunday school class.
Yes, Joshua generation.
And two, you had a work ethic. You were working as a night shift nurse in ICU.
Yes.
And, you would come to church on Sunday morning following a full night's work on Saturday night at the ICU.
In my scrubs.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I figured out what you did for a living, because you showed up in your scrubs. And I was like, have you been to a costume party? And you're like, no.
Where are you coming from?
Yeah, I came from
I didn't
work.
even go home and take a shower.
And so it was a work ethic.
Yes.
And then, there was certainly the physical attraction side of it. But at the same time, when I got to see you interact with your parents, when your dad said something and your immediate response was "sir" instead of "what," and your mom spoke to you and you said "ma'am" instead of "huh," and you created space for your siblings to also be a part of your life. I mean, these were things that I considered to be valuable because it explained to me how you valued family. So, with that being the focus of the last conversation, I think it would be important to talk about career path, because I believe every married person has two careers: the one that they're paid for and the one they're investing in.
That's right. Yes.
So I am paid for what I do as my professional job, but I am investing in my family.
Yes.
Everything that you and I create in terms of income, it gets invested or reinvested into the lives of our children, either for current or future use. If we're paying for Christian education, it's because we believe there's going to be a return on that investment in the future. If we are paying for a college education, we certainly want them to come out of that education and become productive citizens producing income for themselves.
Yes.
So, I don't ever look at, we're spending all of this money on our kids. I look at the money that you make in your first career as a reinvestment in your second career, which is your family. Because I have an actual sermon series that is about, the small business of family, that mom and dad are partners in a small company and the children are the byproduct. But I think it would be good to talk about, advice to our younger selves about career paths in our 20s. And I think that there's a lot of young people that they're wondering, is what I'm doing what I'm gonna keep doing?
And I can speak into that.
Yeah, there's a number of different angles that you have to approach. So I'll let you begin, because I have a very different perspective based on my experience.
Okay, yes. So when I discovered that I wanted to be a nurse, I wanted to go to nursing school when I was probably high school. You kind of go back and forth. Maybe I want to be a teacher, maybe I want to be a lawyer, doctor, whatever. But I knew I wanted to do something to serve others. Now, where I went to nursing school, I got my degree, I started working as a nurse, but right now I'm not actively being a nurse in the hospital, but I feel that God prepared me for what I was doing as a nurse for what I was going to do in the ministry. I mean, I believe that just because you hold a degree of what you went to school for doesn't mean that you're not going to use and do other things for your calling.
Well,
I
and
think
I
He
think
prepares you
there's
for what He
there's
needs you to do.
principles in your classroom training, in your degree plan of nursing, and in
Oh,
your
yes,
life experience of
that
nursing.
prepared
There's
me.
principles that prepared you for the things that are necessary in ministry that you probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere else.
No,
Because
serving one another,
yeah,
loving one another, praying one another in the
well,
hospital. My
a
patients.
nurse takes care of patients that cannot give anything back.
That's right.
And there's a lot of that happens in ministry. If you're dealing with somebody in ICU and they're in an unconscious state, or they're, in a medical situation, you're not expecting a return from that individual. And the Bible says, everything you do, do it as unto the Lord, knowing that your reward will be from Him and not from others. So, that principle was something that was ingrained in you through your nursing training that is now experienced over and over and over again in ministry. The other thing that nursing teaches you to do is that you cannot have bias in who you will and will not take care of.
That's right.
Your patient is your patient, regardless of
right.
their gender, regardless of their culture, regardless of their size, regardless of their type, regardless of their politics, regardless of their income. If they're laying in that bed and you're assigned to take care of the patient in that bed, you do not have bias. You have a responsibility. In ministry, that's very much the same.
Yes.
We do not have bias.
No,
we have
we're an
responsibility.
inclusive church.
We are commissioned to take the gospel to those who need it, and we are commissioned to encourage those who have it.
Yes.
And therefore, there aren't two different kinds of people. There's just two different stages. Those who need Jesus and those who have Jesus. Either way, we've got to minister to both of them. And I think one of the challenges that happens in ministry a lot of times is that people decide who's qualified and who's disqualified. And you, in your nursing training, recognize there are no pre-qualifications. If they're in the hospital, they need help. Well, the church should be a spiritual hospital, just like the medical hospital serves the physical body. The church is intended to serve the spiritual body. And it is either a place for healing or it's a place for wellness. One of the things that bothers me about church these days is that a lot of people don't show up until they're so sick they're in need of life support instead of coming for the purpose of wellness, which keeps them spiritually strong and keeping them from getting spiritually sick. So your career path, looking back, and I think that that's an important thing to consider.
Yes, you have to.
Looking back, you recognize that there was a lot of value and not wasted time.
No, not wasted time.
Based on what you're doing now.
Yes.
Now my career path was very different. And the reason my career path was very different is because from the time I could consciously think, and I have to be honest about this thought because I've shared it many times. It's very genuine and true to myself, but I don't know that I've ever met anyone else that this is common to. From the time that I can consciously remember, I have wanted to and felt that I should be the pastor of Cornerstone Church, not a pastor in a church, not, ministering somewhere wherever the Lord leads. No,
you knew.
The pastor of Cornerstone Church. My calling was connected directly to a geographical location, and there was not any other alternative. Now, that is extremely unique based on what I have come to understand through years of conversation with other people who are both called to ministry and called to other things.
Yes.
Some of them will say, well, I always knew I wanted to, and then they'll give a generalization, but they didn't have that kind of specific detail. Now, the reason that was a benefit to me is that it created such a focus that I didn't get distracted with other opportunities, and I didn't waste any time. And looking at where we are right now as a ministry with Pastor Hagee, in 62 years of service, and I already have 20 years of experience here at Cornerstone Church, and seeing how God has blessed the transition, I didn't have any time to waste. I couldn't go spend my 20s traveling and singing and doing things that were maybe opportunities at that moment in time. And the reason that I didn't entertain those thoughts is because none of them were appealing to me. And so I see it as God in His sovereignty was like, look, if we're going to get where we need to go, I need to take every option off the table and this is what I want Matt to do. And so regardless of what your experience is, if you're in, your situation, Kendall, where you started off on one path and the principles of that path now align with what you're currently doing, or you're in my situation where you always knew what you wanted to do and that's what you're doing. I mean, maybe you're in a generational family business and this is what your family's done for 100 years and 3 generations, and this is what you always wanted to do as well for historic and personal reasons. Regardless of how you got there, I believe that God in his sovereignty has a defined path for each person.
Amen.
And the main thing to do is be willing to follow him, not just go with the flow.
Okay. But that's, something too is like, okay, what about, because now we're dealing with this with Hannah. You're trying to talk to her about career paths. How do you steer your high school, maybe kids that just graduated, not even kids, young adults? How do you steer them in the direction? I mean, besides, like I would say, like with Hannah, I was telling her, well, what do you want to do? I was like, let's pray about it. I said, we can go and volunteer at different places that you may want to be like a nurse. But go see if you even can stand the sight of blood and doing all that stuff.
And what you're talking about is exposure to experience.
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of situations that we allow our children to create in their own mind without helping them sort it out.
That's right, yeah.
I think one of the biggest struggles that has been created in the young generation is the attitude and the idea you can do whatever you want. No, you can't. You can do whatever you can, but you cannot do whatever you want. I may want to play in the NBA.
Yes.
But guess what? I'm not tall enough, I'm not fast enough, and I don't have near the skill sets that the guys who are playing in the NBA do. So regardless of what I want to do, there are certain things I can do and there are certain things I cannot do.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I knew that I was truly called to do what I'm doing is that I've always had a natural ability to communicate.
You do. You do.
And
our first conversation, as when we were talking, first dating, you talked for me for a full hour. I didn't even talk the whole time.
And
it was like beautiful. I was like, a man is talking.
And at the same time, you've made up for it since then. So
I had to get some words in there.
I think that whenever your children tell you what they feel like they want to do, and it might just be a feeling. I mean, right now, JW, he talks to me about playing college football.
I know. And then he goes to
and or playing guitar, or there's all kinds of things, and those are not bad things. They're just fun things. But you owe it to them to be honest. Okay, son, if you want to play college football, here's how much work it takes to get that done. I'm not saying you're not going to be physically big enough. He could be. I'm not saying you won't be strong enough or fast enough. That's yet to be determined. But what I do know is if you're going to do that, you're going to have to work at it every day for a certain amount of time, and you will not get better sitting on the couch. It's when you let your kids sit on the couch and tell themselves fairy tales that life becomes a very abrupt interruption whenever reality sets in. And so I think whenever your child tells you what they think they might want to do, then it's time for you to start giving them opportunity to be exposed to that. For example, if your daughter says, I would like to be a teacher, if that's what Hannah told me she wanted to do, I would immediately suggest that she starts volunteering in our Sunday school program and spending time with 5-year-olds in a classroom for 1 hour a week. Because if she can't do it for 1 hour during Sunday school, she ain't going to do it 8 hours a day.
No, teaching is a calling.
Absolutely. If they say, I think I want to be a chef. Excellent. Get in here and help me make breakfast. And if they don't like the feeling of egg yolk on their fingertips, then they need to go away. But I mean, these are things that you owe it to them to experience. We have horses. And Hannah told me one time she wanted
to be a vet.
Yeah, she wanted to be a veterinarian. I said, awesome. Come down here to the barn and let's deal with this horse that's sick. No, as soon as we cleaned out that stall, she was done. She was cured. She didn't want to be a zookeeper. She hoped that, every animal she had from that point on was stuffed. And so, you owe it to them to find out through experience what they do and they don't like. Don't ignore those things that they talk about. Pay attention to them and then invest in them.
Okay.
Invest as part of your career. Okay, let's spend a little bit of money doing that and see if it's something you like or you don't like. But one of the other things that I would suggest to people with regard to their career is, one, you need to make sure that you actually have a passion for what you do.
Amen.
that,
Yeah.
regardless of what other people think about it, you love it. And the thing that I have always noticed as a common trait in successful people, they enjoy their job. They
Yes.
don't ever wake up and go, oh, another day at the office.
Yes. Where was it? Like I heard like somebody said on one of the podcasts or something, like he was doing a job for 40 years and he hated his job for 40 years. And they said, then why have you been doing this job? Why didn't you try something, start it or
Correct.
quit it? Why didn't you try
Yeah.
something sooner?
I couldn't imagine living my existence in
No.
that kind
With you.
of environment where I truly did not enjoy what I do. If I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I would search until I found it. So,
good. Yeah.
when you find out what you enjoy doing, the next thing you need to do is ask yourself, is it possible to make a living doing this? For example, I know some people that they truly love music or they truly love fashion design. And it might be important that they learn a trade while they pursue their passion. So, go learn how to do something that will pay your bills while you practice music. Go learn how to do something that will pay your bills while you work on your fashion design. And if through the development of your natural talents, you become qualified to make your living in fashion, or you become qualified to make your living in music or something that you're really passionate about, you can then quit your day job and start working
Pick it up
on
your
your passion
passion
job.
job.
G. Harvey was a very good friend of ours when he was alive. He's a very talented artist,
Yes.
and there's probably some folks here that may have some of his work in the house. He did bronze and Western art and my kind of stuff,
Yes.
cowboys, right?
Texas.
Well,
Western.
G. Harvey was a school teacher, and he taught art of all things. And, there are actually people in this world today that can say, G. Harvey was my high school art teacher. But what he really wanted to do was see if he could make a living as an artist. And so he worked as a school teacher for a number of years until he felt like he had enough money saved up to spend 1 year creating art.
Oh,
And so he spent 12 months based on the savings that he had put away, which is a lot of hard work and investment.
yes.
He'd spent 12 months going from, living on his savings and going to these different sites. He went to national parks and he went to monuments and he went to all the different things that he wanted to be able to capture in historical art. And he created the bronzes and he created the paintings and he created the sketches. And then he had an art show. And he basically made up his mind that at the end of that art show, predicated on what he was able to sell, he would decide whether or not he could do this for a living. And the rest, as they say, is history. But what he did is he did not sit and starve to death as an artist waiting to be discovered. He worked in something that he was able to do until he got the ability that he needed to have in order to do what he wanted to do. And I think that there's a lot of young people that they convince themselves, as soon as people find me, well, what are you doing to make yourself discoverable? Where are you going? What are you doing? I mean, I was talking to a young man the other day who he's in school and he's working in a hotel. And I asked him, I said, where are you working? And he says, oh, I work in the gym. And I said, okay. I said, see if they can move you to front desk. And he was like, well, I don't want to work the front desk. I said, but where do you see more people?
Front desk.
And he said, the front desk. And I said, and what do you want to do when you get out of school? Well, I want to be in business. I said, so do the businessmen check in at the front desk or do they check in the gym? Well, some of them come in the gym. And I said, and when they come in the gym, do they want to work out or do they want to talk to you?
Work out.
He said they want to work out. I said, so get to the front desk and every businessman that you meet, introduce yourself and tell them while you're here, if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know. And I said, and whenever they walk in and out, you greet them by name and you ask if there's anything you can do. And I said, sooner or later, one of those businessmen is going to notice you and ask you who you are and what you're here for and if there's a way that they can work with you some point in the future. Well, it took him about 30 days to figure out that standing in the gym, listening to guys, run up and down the treadmill wasn't getting it done.
No.
And so he got moved to the front desk. And now he's got a tremendously successful financial job based on a company that kept sending executives to his hotel, and he continually proved himself valuable in service. And they decided that this was a kid that once he got out of school, he deserved a shot. And as soon as he graduated school, he got a shot. but it's because he made a plan to make himself noticeable.
Yes.
He wasn't hiding, waiting for somebody to come discover him. He made himself discoverable.
Yes. And what you say, value is added when engagement is increased. That is something you've been plugging into employees here at Cornerstone Church and at home. So
I'm almost going to get emotional because when your
because I
wife
quoted you.
when your wife quotes you, it's almost as if she said, "Honey."
I am listening, baby.
It's almost as if she said, "Honey, you are exactly right." And
I am.
while she may never say
Exclamation
that
mark.
publicly,
I am. You are right.
I'm what?
You are right.
No.
And this
I said
value
I
is
said
added.
exactly right. Not right. There is another word missing.
I'm not going to say exactly.
See,
but you are
that's
right.
my point.
So we want you. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, this mini series 1 and 2. We have more for you next week, so we want you to tell a friend about this. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple or follow us on Spotify. And we want to hear from you. So leave us your reviews. I have a review to read because, I've been reading some of these reviews.
Does it say I'm exactly right?
So far, no, but we got some
Find
good
another review.
5
Somebody
stars.
send in a review that says Matt's exactly right.
I love this. So one of the ladies says, awesome podcast. This is from Joanna. I watch you on Sundays before I go to church. And you and your dad, your sermons are the best and inspirational. And I listen to you on your podcast. So thank you, Joanna, for leaving those reviews. Please leave your review, subscribe, and tell a friend about this podcast.
And we've talked about career, we've talked about advice to our younger selves in terms of relationships and those kinds of things. If there is an area that you would like to hear advice to our younger selves, or you would like to hear a topic covered, don't hesitate to put that in the reviews or send us a comment. Let us know what it is that you want to hear discussed on this podcast, because again, our purpose is to make a difference in your everyday life. And if you'll let us know how we can, we certainly will do our best to try. So God bless you guys. Thanks for joining Matt and Kendall on the Matt and Kendall Hagee podcast. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.